Hey everybody, before we get started, just remind you by our patrons like Ahiko Comics, Qua, Drago66, and Nestor Flores. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it would really help us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. That's right, welcome back everyone. Let's talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll a 5-star. Yes, that's right, if you don't roll the 5 stars we tell you to roll, you're a filthy casual who's terrible at this game, and you should just quit now. In case you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic. In fact, both Lucky and I have the filthy casual role on our Discord, which you can check out, that link is in the description. Anyway, hey, hi everybody. Let's not mince words. We're going to talk about Merlin today. We're going to talk about Merlin in 4 parts: real-life history and mythology, fate lore with a capital L, mechanics, and rarity. You will be astonished and stunned and entertained at every step of the way in this journey, because Merlin is just that good. Well, really, that's on you. Is Merlin just that good? Yeah, kinda. We'll talk about that, actually. If you break him down, Merlin's got some interesting design choices, which just... It's kind of weird how that whole package emerges, you know? But I expect this to be much like the Jolter video, a enormously successful video. But hey, if you don't get Merlin, or you don't feel like putting a lot of effort into rolling Merlin, don't worry, I'm sure your support list will be filled with Merlins. Anyway, yeah, well, I mean, there's no point in mincing words, right? Let's just get into the thing. Just talk about Merlin. Alright, so Merlin, or in the original Welsh, Myrddin? There's 2 D's in there, and there's a Y and MRY. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not up on my Welsh, guys. You'd think that would be in my wheelhouse, but no. I don't know. And Merlin is a character most specifically from Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae, circa 1136, based on older characters, such as Myrddin, the Welsh name, and historical characters with no connection to King Arthur, who are prophets, druids, sorcery types. Everybody should know the basic story of Merlin's character. He is a wizard. Many traditional biographies categorize him as a Cambion, a child of an incubus and a human woman, which is why he gets his cool, sagely powers from. And he serves as the person who engineers the birth of King Arthur, tutors them, and serves as a court advisor until such time as he is killed and or captured somewhere. Often he is said to be buried in the magical forest of Brocéliande. That's how I'm choosing to pronounce that. Really much like the actual King Arthur, there's so much with Merlin. He's such a popular character in both the original works and then in the many, many future retellings and expansions and extras that it's hard to encapsulate it all in a single video. And you should just look it up yourself, if you don't already know, because, I mean, goddamn, it's Merlin. He's everywhere. There are some fun facts you may not know about Merlin. Depending on the mythology, he may be married to a woman named Gwendolen, and he has a sister, who is Queen of the Cumbrians. Neat. Merlin is sometimes thought of as the teacher of Morgan Le Fay, possible lover. Don't know about that in Fate, because they did the thing where you conflate Morgause and Morgan Le Fay. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Sometimes he has a different apprentice called Nimue, or Vivian, with many various spellings, who he has affections for, but she does not return, and then he gets imprisoned in Avalon. Or in a forest, who knows. So, with that basic stuff out of the way, and I know, yeah, it was very short, but this is like when I talked about Lancer Artori. There's so much actually going on there that unpacking all of it would be kind of a pain. Just remember that he's, you know, got magical powers of illusions or shape-shifting and lots of prophecy. And also in some versions, he was never baptized, because he's part incubus. Speaking of which, let's jump into Merlin's lore in Fate. So, pretty much the fundamental assumption you'd think Merlin is the chief sage of King Arthur, responsible for disguising the fact that Artoria is a girl, and many other infamous actions we will not remark about in this video, because those jokes have been played to death. No, I'm not going to do it. It's been done already. Anyway, Merlin is notable, I think, for maybe some of the differences in talking about his characterization. the whole half incubus thing is played up, and in this case, as kind of like nebulous. We don't want to, comment on the metaphysical nature of demons in a Christian sense in Nasu. They're like weird dream-eating creatures, so Merlin slurps up mana from dreams or something. Technically, ood, I think, because it'd be the magical energy of the person. Anyway, he does all that stuff, and so he has a particular attachment to people's dreams, and he doesn't necessarily, he talks about this in Babylonia a lot, he doesn't necessarily feel human emotions like a normal person, but he can kind of like fake emotions, and he can't really relate to people, I should say, but he can understand what the appropriate response in certain situations is, because he's cool like that. He's a little bit of a trickster, a little bit of a scumbag, very egotistical, but ultimately he's interested in human success and the continuation of human history as an immortal. And so he helps out as he should, giving Artoria lots of rad gifts and powers and cool toys. And then at some point he gets exiled to Avalon in the reverse side of the world, from whence he cannot return eternally. Maybe. He still gets around a little bit, but yes, mostly he is sealed in the tower, and as of yet, I don't think Nasu's been very specific on how or why. So, yeah, that's still up in the air. We'll never know if we'll get more commentary with more characters who come in. To a lot of places, he's portrayed as kind of like, a distant weirdo who has helpful advice, but also kind of a jerk. And he's associated with Fo, who he calls Cathpulag. Another famous Welsh ghost story. And also with the recent release of Bradamante in JP, that's actually part of her backstory in those epic poems, where his ghost or something is mentioned. So that was probably him psychically calling her from Avalon, on his football phone. Merlin has a football phone. Don't lie to me. And Merlin, of course, plays a couple of big roles in some story points in Major Singularities in FGO. Physically, he appears for an extended period in, Babylonia, but also he, comes up a few times in Camelot, and he even makes a brief appearance in America as kind of like a preview, a PV. Hey, I'm watching. Don't you worry about me. And of course, he becomes summonable in Solomon. Also, speaking of Solomon, Merlin, at least when you meet him in Babylonia, claims that he qualifies for Grand Caster, even though he has not technically been summoned in that vessel. Well, that's a discussion for another time. Let's talk about Merlin's mechanics. Let's just get it out of the way. Let's just jump right in. So, looking at his core stats, this is actually very interesting. Merlin's underlying statistics are not actually super impressive. He has the same attack and HP spread as Tamamo and Anastasia. Does anybody else share that exact same spread? Let me double check. No, okay, it's just those three. But he has the same HP total as also Leonardo and Jilang El Meloy. So he's fairly low in the attack department and fairly well balanced in the HP department. So nothing too impressive. And if you look at his core generation stats, he seems kind of like an older servant. He's got 0.8 NP charge per attack, 2 hit arts cards. Sure, he's got 3, but still, that seems like it's a little sluggish, right? But then you actually look at his skills, and we'll talk about them in detail later, and then you realize, oh, Merlin doesn't need cards to charge his NP. That's what literally everything else is for. But other than that, not too remarkable. Has a lot of hits on his Buster card, which is always kind of interesting. Decent number of hits on his Quick card. Lots of hits on that Extra, so if you're dropping Arts Chains, you will get a decent number of NP charge out of that. But altogether, not super impressive. Alright, so let's start talking about the big deal. So, Garden of Avalon. Now, you may be wondering yourself, wait a minute, is that right? Doesn't he recover party HP totally? That's only his NPC version of Babylonia. Yes, the actual Seminole version is slightly nerfed in that version, the playable version, or the permanently playable version of Garden of Avalon, is only recovery per turn, NP gauge, and stars per turn for 5 turns, which is pretty great. So, obviously, with the length of those buffs, that means he can stack them. And depending on your NP level, you can get a decent amount of HP recovery per turn, but even then, 1k per turn for 5 turns is still pretty steady. The NP charge is set at 5%, but that's still really good. That's, 25% before that buff runs out. And the overcharge of stars per turn is also alright. 5 isn't great, but, once you start getting a couple levels of overcharge in there, pretty useful. But mostly what Garden of Avalon does is, I think, the endurance aspect. It's just, oh, okay, so these buffs last forever, so you can stack them a lot. And how can you stack them? Well, let's look at his skills, which is really where Merlin kind of being a cut above the rest, right? Like, clearly, where normally servants were thought of as, well, oh, that's really strong. We should, adjust that somewhere. We should put a demerit in here, or we should make that cooldown longer. They were like, Merlin's really powerful. Who cares? Dreamlike Charisma A gives his allies an A-level charisma buff, so 10 to 20% for 3 turns, with a cooldown of 5 turns. Oh, it also increases allies' NP gauge by 20%, including on Merlin. It's nuts. It's nuts. For comparison, since I mentioned him earlier, El Meloy skill are 6-turn cooldowns, and they do NP gauge by 10% each. Now, it is true, his percentages are higher. They start at 20% and they go to 30%, but still, right? Like, Merlin gets a whole extra 10% NP charge and still has a lesser cooldown. That's nuts. And that's key to why I say Merlin doesn't need cards to charge his NP. Number 2, Illusion A. Now, while useful, this is probably Merlin's least best skill because it has a cooldown minimum of 7. And for a skill with Invincible, that's a long cycle, right? On like if you're using NPs to like buy time or Invincible to buy time during NPs and stuff. So that's pretty long, but increases all allies' star drop rate for 1 turn by 50%. Again, that's kind of bad for such a long cooldown, but he also decreases the enemy's critical chance by up to 20% for 3 turns, which is really good. That's going to make some enemies impossible to crit, and you still get 1 turn to Invincible to all allies. It's decent, but that's not really the most definitive part of his kit. What probably is his Hero Creation EX, which is a minimum 6-turn cooldown. And what you get for this is you increase one ally's Buster card effectiveness for 3 turns, you increase their Axe HP for 3 turns, and you increase their critical strength for 1 turn. Oh, hey, by the way, that Buster Plus for 3 turns is maximum 50%. That's right. Merlin gets a targetable Mana Burst with a 6-turn cooldown, and the effect lasts 3 turns. That's pretty nuts. Once again, put that in perspective with some other casters. Let's see. I shouldn't have left this page. I left the list of casters, and now they're not sorted in the direction, so I'm like, where the fuck is everybody? So, yeah, that's similar to Tamo's Fox Wedding. She gives you a targetable 3 turns of arts up for 50%, but for only 1 more turn of cooldown, Merlin gets arguably a better heal effect because its max HP increased by up to 3k. The Tamamo's healing caps out at 25k, or 2.5k. And also 1 turn of 100% critical damage. And that's 1 extra cooldown turn. That's like, god damn, that's crazy. That he gets this, right? And he can just slap it on whatever. This is why Merlin defines the Buster crit meta in the future, right? Because, okay, so 20% attack up, that's pretty good. He can cover your bases with defenses. He can, he can do a decent amount of healing per turn with his NP. What he does with Hero Creation is he gives you 3k more HP, which is pretty significant. And I've heard people argue that max HP is arguably better than HP recovery because there's no risk of overlap. If somebody's down 3,000 HP, they are just up more because their max HP increased, as opposed to if you're only down 2,000 HP and you drop a 25k heal, you wasted 500 HP. Still, not so. And then 100%. It's double critical damage. Criticals are already amazing. He's generating large chunks of stars per turn with his NP. Stick it with somebody with an appropriate burst skill or some fragments at 20-30. You can make some characters do freakishly powerful Buster crits on demand. And he's a caster, so his own star weight isn't super high. And then, yes, like I said, he has the targetable 50% 3 turns Buster up, for only 6 turns of recharge. It's nuts. It's crazy. It's why he's so good. And yes, Merlin's skills are really good. Like we said, it's really interesting to see his design. His core stats aren't super impressive. His generic passive skills, as we're about to talk about, aren't super impressive. He only has Territory Creation C for a very slight boost on his arts cards, and a very slight boost on his debuff success rate with Illusion, right? But while the cooldown on Illusion is a little long for my liking for what it does, that's still a very effective button if you only have to use it a couple of times. And Dreamlight Charisma is just like, yeah, let's have a regular full-blown Charisma and a 20% Team Charger into your NPs. You know, he's probably dropping the team like 5% per turn already, because you're going to drop his NP pretty easily because of all the charging he does. Because Mixed Blood EX, he gains 5% NP per turn. Yeah, that's more than most Avengers. That's more, I think that's more than Ilya. Because it's interesting that only Avengers and Casters, I think, have self-charging effects. But let's see, what's Ilya's? I think it's 3%. Yeah, so Ilya's Infinite Magical Energy is only 3% MP gauge per turn. So yes, Merlin will rapidly self-charge himself. He will self-charge your allies. He will defend your allies, and he will make them really good at killing things. Combined with your most basic-ass gorilla, whatever you want, you'll be doing tons of damage. Tons and tons of damage. Repeatedly. It's crazy. And, of course, like we said, he's got that invincible and that max HP up to keep your longevity. If you're wondering why Merlin is considered broken or power creep, it's just because he basically does everything at once with no real drawbacks to himself or loss of efficiency. You know, like we said, you know, like he supports Buster, he supports crits, he gives attack, he gives defense, he charges your NP, he heals HP, he increases crits, he provides stars, he just does basically everything you want out of a support in a one-stop shop, only his only card-focused boost is Buster. Theoretically, you know, with the attack and the crit charge and the max HP, you could make it do with others, but he's most optimal with Buster-focused servants. Which is why they're a big deal until break gauges come in, and then you're like, well, burst damage isn't so great. But if you already have, like, a Jolter, you know, he'll fit in perfectly there. If you've got some big beefcake, you know, hard-hitting berserkers, like Herc, another common great servant. You know, so many servants he just works so well with. Sorry, if I was a little muffled there, I scratched my nose. I mean, like, what do you even want to do with CEs? I mean, I guess just, you know, 2030, Prisma Cosmos, fuck it, lunchtime. You know, just do whatever you want. Assuming you're willing to invest the incredible cost in his skills, you will be pretty set, which some people obviously have been saying since the beginning. But, hey, hope you have shitloads of QP. That's, you know, like 4.5 million QP for each skill. Oh, wait, no, that's his Ascensions, so that's way more. That's a lot of QP. Sorry, I was looking at his Ascensions, not his skill reinforcement. So if you want to get all his skills to 10, that's, I want to say, like 50 million QP each. You need a fuck ton of pages, and also he needs hearts. So yeah, no. That's on top of like you need like 5 million QP to ascend him all the way. So yeah, he's worth the investment if you do get him. It's just, yes, there's a serious, like, you know, it's not like he's cheap, okay? So don't, but if you do go all the way, he will be pretty cruise control for a while. And while not required, there's definitely a certain air in certain parts that, like, well, if you're having trouble with a challenge quest, just throw Merlin at it. And in fact, a lot of quests for a while are going to be how does the game get around the fact that you can just dial up a Merlin. But yeah, so there's no real need to worry about team comp. He is the team comp. It's you slot Merlin in there, and then he makes whatever you were trying to make work. So long as they're Buster. And if you want a similar effect, you just gotta wait a couple years, you know, year and a half for Scotty, and that'll take care of that problem quick. And actually, well, we've talked about Scotty before. She's not quite as comprehensively effective as Merlin, but she really does make quick work. So now Merlin's rarity. And yes, Merlin is actually pretty rare. The Solomon release campaign upcoming, which is why we're releasing this wanted video, is one of the major releases for him. And the second was the 10 million downloads campaign, so whatever that'll be called in America, or the North American-based English server, which will be sometime next year, it should be. Because it was in 2017. So it'll be in 2019 somewhere for NA. And as of this point in JP, there have been no further raid ups. So if you do want a Merlin, you do have a couple pretty narrow windows. So you should go ahead and take your opportunity. Like I said, if you're curious about him just for the gameplay reasons, there's no need to go whole hog because you're likely to get supports. And yes, of course, you can double Merlin just like you can double Wave, and in the future you can double Scotty. But yeah, I would like to emphasize once again, while he does make things a lot easier and a lot simpler and in a lot of ways brainless, he's not really required to beat everything because most of the time the game acknowledges that Merlin is easy modo anyway, so either it just accepts that you'll easy mode with him or it tries to arrange things in such a way you can't actually just autopilot with Merlin, like Bird Gauges. Anyway, I think I'll go ahead and let you guys go. Hope you enjoyed that video. Hope it was informative. Hope this video gets lots of views. And, of course, if you like this video, give it a like. That's pretty important to keep videos circulating and show you like the channel. And, of course, if you have any comments about everybody's favorite Major Flowers, what did you think I was going to say? Go ahead and leave those in the comment section down below. You can also talk about this on our Discord, where you can come up with many other rejected subtitles for this video, like I tweeted earlier. And, of course, if you are new here and have not already, please subscribe to the channel so you can always catch our latest videos as we continue to do a shitload of wanted videos about characters this month. So many videos. Oh my god. Merlin's like the third in this sequence. Actually, no. Merlin's like the fourth in this sequence because it started with Ishtar, so yeah. And I still got a couple more to go. And even if you're already subscribed, don't forget that bell for notifications. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon. You get access to episodes early. So you could have watched this a whole day earlier and worked out your summoning plans. Or just been entertained by me telling you stuff. You never know. Anyway, stay tuned for our regular show, Let's Talk FGO. As of yet, this week's show isn't out, and also we're shooting another show, which will be after Solomon comes out. So, hey, we'll see if maybe the hosts have rolled a Merlin. Who knows? And, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for your time, everybody.